All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I am Stacy. I'm with Pins and Needles, and I have Sylvain here with Bernina Burnett. He's going to be showing off the B70 today. So welcome, Sylvain.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we are going to hop right into this. We're going to give everyone a little bit of time to kind of get in here. Make sure you're using that chat box. We can answer any questions. Sylvain can't see the questions, so we'll take a break every so often, and then I will read them off to him. So just give us a little bit of time to answer those questions, and use that chat function. And if you need to, you can give us a call at 440-243-6400. We can help you out with this B70 or any other embroidery machines. Right now we have a surplus sale going on, and we always have financing. So I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to let Sylvain get right into it because there's a lot of great features with this B70 that will blow you away. So luckily we have an hour, so we don't have to kind of cram everything in. But Sylvain, you ready to take over?
I'm ready.
Perfect. All right. Enjoy.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. I have to make a confession. My name is Sylvain, and I'm a Bernina snob. I work for Bernina, right? And I work on top of the line machines. However, this baby was one of my puppies that I had to help introduce 2 years ago. And I fell in love with the Burnett B70 series, and especially the B70 Deco, which is an embroidery-only machine, and for several reasons. But just to give you the high level, when Bernina worked to develop these machines with a hardware partner, the machine is manufactured for Bernina. It's a Burnett, and they really looked at what was in the field in a certain price, in the middle of the market, if you want, the affordable price points. And I saw the spreadsheets, and all the features in this machine were either at best of class or at par with the best of class. So basically, that machine was top of its class across the board. And I'll go through some of the features and what that means in your embroidery for you in a minute. So I fell in love with these machines, and I tell you, you can do a lot of things with it. The value proposition, and I'll come back to that later, but the value proposition is, what if you wanted to take the Bernina know-how in embroidery, but you wanted a more affordable platform than what a Bernina costs, right? So what do? You'd partner with a value hardware company, and you graft the Bernina user interface onto the hardware. That being said, this hardware platform was designed and developed by the partner strictly for Bernina. It's exclusive to Bernina. And if you own a Bernina sewing machine, you probably recognize the layout already with the knobs on the right, the screen in the center, and all the key buttons here. You basically will recognize that. So take the Bernina know-how in embroidery, add that onto a value hardware platform, and you get a win-win solution. Value does not mean necessarily the most features. It does not mean the lowest price. It's that sweet spot, the blend of the two. And this machine is a perfect example of that. So let me start with the basic questions we always get. Why would I get an embroidery-only machine? Well, if you have a sewing machine already that you know, that's a big deal, right? You know where everything is, how it works. You've been using it for 1 or 10 years, and it works well for you. Why would you trade that into a combo machine where all you want to do is add embroidery, right? Now, if you want a newer machine with more sewing functions, that strategy makes sense. But in this case, what if you just want to add embroidery to your studio? Then an embroidery machine makes sense. For 2 reasons. One, it's dedicated to embroidery. Even the buttons here that on the sister Burnett would be dedicated to sewing are here dedicated to embroidery functions like centering the hoop and all that good stuff. Number 2, you basically can embroider on this while you still sew the patches or the blocks together into, let's say, a quilt on your sewing machine. So you don't have to pause sewing to do embroidery. You can run both at the same time. So having a dedicated embroidery machine is actually a very sweet solution because you can focus on your embroidery. You can run it at any time. It does not compete with your sewing time that way. So next is, when you do an embroidery machine, the first question we always get is, how many hoops and how big are the hoops? Because that determines what you can do. So just off the bat, let me answer that. There are 3 hoops. There's a small hoop. It's about 2 by 3 inches, roughly. In millimeters, it's 50, so it's 2 by about 2 3/4 inches. So that's good for little monograms, things on a cuff, really small stuff. Then there's a medium hoop, which is not quite, but roughly 5 by 7 inches, which is pretty standard for the class. So that is good for most of your designs. I'm going to show you samples in a bit, but you want to do a little pin cushion, for instance, and bring that a little closer. It's a little pin cushion with a design that would fit in this hoop. You could actually probably embroider pieces of fabric in some cases and make 2 at the same time. So the medium hoop is a good size as well. And then, of course, the big question is, how big is the large hoop? And my ears are big, and that clears it. This hoop is 6 1/4 by 10 1/4 inches. That's a good size. That allows you to do a big project. And just to give you an example, this is a pillow that I did to showcase the large hoop. And the pillow has basically two hoopings on it. One for the tree and one for the name of the season. And these designs are built into the machine. The 4 seasons with the 4 trees representing each season are built into the machine. So with just 2 little hoopings, a little bit of loose fill, that was the end of a bag of loose fill, I was able to make a decorative pillow that I can put on the shelf or on the couch. So the large hoop is plenty big to do actual projects. You could even do some what we call computerized quilting, some quilting in the hoop. You want to do some quilting stitches on the border. You could rehoop with this. Now, the hoops, 3 sizes, but it doesn't stop there. The level of thinking that went into these machines really amazed me at the beginning. First thing, at the top of the hoop attachment bracket, here's a little sensor. And the arm of the machine has a little block here that reads. The machine knows what hoop is attached to it. So if you load a design that is bigger than the hoop you currently have on, you're going to get a nice red line on screen. That's your alert that, whoops, we need to bump up the hoop size. And then another feature that I really like on the hoops is there is a quick release clamp on the hoop here. When you open this, it releases the 2 rings. You can take things apart. When you rehoop, all you have to do is reclamp that lever and it will refasten the hoop for you. So in projects, we often repeat multiples of the same thing. Let's say if it's little birds for the 50 states birds collection, if you redo the same block over and over again, the first time you put this in the hoop, you're going to tighten the clamp, tighten the screw, and then you have established the tension needed on that screw, the pressure to hold that particular project, regardless of which hoop it is, small, medium, or large. They all do the same. So then when you're ready, you can release your embroidery when it's done. And then what will happen is that when you're ready to rehoop, you rehoop your stuff. And then when you reclamp, that hoop has a form of memory, if you want, because you've already tightened the screw. The only time you would not use this is if you're using very thick material. You're rehooping, let's say, on polar fleece, multiple layers, then you may have to loosen the screw, because in embroidery, you always loosen the screw for heavier projects. So 3 hoops covers your sizes. The hoops are easy to use, easy on, easy off. The machine knows what hoop is on. So you can focus on your embroidery process, on your design, where and how you want it on your garment, your bag, your whatever. And then for positioning, if you need precision, there is a template for each of the hoops. It's a clear template that fits right on top. And it has all the markings, even diagonals, for you to properly position your embroidery. So after your initial embroidery classes, you are in business. This machine makes it easy to take all that information and actually make your embroidery projects. So that's for the hoops. So right off the bat, you don't have to sweat about, do I have to tell the machine this and this or that? The machine knows it, so you can't make a mistake there. Now, let's look at the layout of the machine. I mentioned we have a centrally located touchscreen. That is a Bernina philosophy in interface design. When you are looking at your embroidery, you can just look up and see on your screen whether you did this or that, whether you put the basting box, and I'll come back with the functions in a bit. But you can see right away whether everything is in place before you say go on the start-stop button. And if the start-stop button is red, it's not ready to sew. If it's green, it's ready to go. So again, no guessing. That's important. Embroidery should be fun. It should be creative. It should not be a chore. So this machine is designed to facilitate the process, starting from the screen in front of you. Then on the right here are 2 knobs, the multifunction knobs. And when you turn them, you can either rotate designs. And so if I tell you rotate the design clockwise, your hand knows what to do. It's crank up the stereo. If I say, rotate to the left, you'll know what to do as well. And then you have an upper and lower knob, which means when you start to move stuff in the hoop, you can actually use the upper knob to go sideways and the lower knob to go. So you don't have to park your finger on the screen and make sure it stays there to go plus, plus, minus, minus on the dimensions. You can just park your hand on the knob and just turn. It's very intuitive that way. And that, again, is inherited from the Bernina user interface. Then there are dedicated buttons on the right below here, or below the knobs. Those are for managing the hoop. And there's also a check function. There's a speed slider on the front. So if you're doing delicate embroidery, little tip, learn from experience. I've been doing embroidery since 1996. And I realized along the way that the faster you embroider, the harder the needle hits the fabric, right? The faster it goes, that steel is going to hit. Well, if you're doing handkerchief linen or a very fancy napkin, a satin for a ring bearer's pillow, for instance, you don't want to hit that fabric too hard because you may damage the fabric by hitting it too hard. So with just the slider here, you can slow down the machine, even if you forgot, which that happens a lot, to me at least. If you forgot to slow it down because you planned on that, then you can actually do it right then and there, super easy. So all the key controls are on the front of the machine, around the screen, right in line. When you look at the hoop, you can look at your screen and know exactly what's going on. There will be no guessing. So the machine also has 9 inches here. That makes the large hoop possible. And it also gives room for your project, because you know that you don't always embroider at the very edge of the project. Sometimes you have to roll up the project on the right here. So there's a bit of extra room here for that to happen. And then you can drape the project over your module. It will all go into good place. Little touches that are very, very nice. When you're ready to thread this machine, everything is under the hood. You have a you can wind your bobbin. When you engage the bobbin winder, the machine knows it will put a winding screen on the front, and then you can use a speed slider to control the speed of winding. So if you're winding with a thread, let's say like a bottom line, that tends to stretch a little bit because it's a thin thread, you can slow down the winder. If you're doing a regular bobbin thread where it does not matter, you can slide all the way up and wind at full speed. It's a friction winder. When you engage it, the machine is automatically immobilized. Only the winder will work while it's spinning. When that's done, there's a little cutter here where you can cut the thread right off the bobbin, right off the spool, so that you can now put the bobbin into the machine. You don't need to reach for the scissors. So you put the thread on, you start winding, you cut, you put it in, and there's a cutter here when you insert the bobbin. It's a drop-in bobbin, so nice and easy to put in. When you do that, no scissors, you're ready to start embroidering. Then the regular threading is just your conventional up and down, the take-up lever, and then down to the needle. And to make it easy, there is a built-in needle threader. And you've noticed that you may be able to see, but the foot of the machine will move out of the way automatically when you try to, even if your foot was up, you don't need to bring it down. You just engage the threader. The machine will bring the foot down to make room, and then you can thread the machine as you go. And not only that, when you thread this machine, when you bring the thread through the threader, there's a cutter retainer on the right-hand side of the needle here. So you will cut your thread there. And then when you send the threader backwards to form the loop through the needle, it will form the loop every time. Super, super easy. The ergonomics are very well detailed because those came from Bernina, and our hardware partner basically implemented those into this design, this machine for Bernina. You can embroider with the hood up or down. I like it down personally because if I'm manipulating a quilt or a jacket and I go over, it happens to brush over my machine, it won't knock into anything if the hood is down. But if you like it up so you can easily get to your threads, it's really your choice. There is no questions there. Stacy, do we have any questions at this time?
No, we don't. I was just reading. Nancy says, Sylvain does such a good job. We don't have any questions.
Well, let's say I've done a lot of embroidery, right? My last quilt had 4 million stitches on the front. I used 3 machines to run that because it was cross stitch, which is not very fast. And that brings up the topic. this is not a Bernina, it's a Bernat, which means, again, you get the Bernina know-how in a value package. And the question we get is that, can you embroider the same stuff you would on a Bernina? And generally, I would say yes. There are some differences. There's a reason an 880 Bernina costs a lot more money, like maybe 10 times more. It's a stronger, beefier machine. But for all my regular embroidery, and I'll show you like terry towels and stuff like that today, that machine can pretty much do all your regular embroidery. The key with any embroidery machine is the needle. It's the needle that goes through the project. So if you want to embroider, let's say on real suede, like triple stitch embroidery, it's beautiful on suede, right? Or on leather for that matter, you want to make sure you have a very strong, probably top stitch needle. And if it's the right design, you'd have to check, but if it's the right design, you could even use a leather needle to sew that. But in this case, I would go to a top stitch needle for embroidery on heavy duty stuff. Now notice my screen just changed. It just went black. This machine has a eco mode, again, inherited from Bernina features. The eco mode kicks in at about 15-20 minutes, which means all I have to do now is touch the screen, and I need to touch the middle of the screen, so I'll get up, and then it will come back. It's a good feature for two reasons. You walk away, and the phone rings, your grandchildren need to be picked up from school, something happens, you need to step away from the studio, and you're in the middle of preparing something, or you've already started stitching. You can let it run, or you can stop it. But then if you put it in eco mode yourself, a machine, it stays parked. It does not really use much electricity at all anymore. But the design you had, the positioning, everything you did is still in place. Now, if you forget to do that, don't worry. The machine will do it for you. After about 15 minutes, the machine will park itself in eco mode. And I have a little anecdote, Stacy. Now, it's a similar feature as we have on the Berninas. That's where it came from. I went on vacation 3 weeks in Canada to visit my folks. I came back a week and a half ago. And so a month ago, I had put my Bernina on eco mode, and I forgot I did that. And preparing for packing the suitcases and everything, I came back a month later. And I noticed, oh, the machine was still waiting for me. I touched echo, and it came right back up. And everything I did, the last thing I did was on screen, ready for me. This applies here as well. So if you leave for a month, normally you would turn the machine off, no biggie. But if you have to leave and come back a few hours later, you don't need to turn off. And then I know I'm almost 60 years old now. I know that if I turn the machine off and I come back a day or two later, the first question out of my mouth would be, where was I? What was I doing now? I will have to figure out where I was. This way with eco mode, the machine remembers it for you, and it stays put, and you just revive it and continue where you left off. Whether it was the end of a color, or you can even I've done this, I let the machine finish the current color. I walk away, go do whatever I need to do. The machine, after 15 minutes of inactivity, will go to eco mode. When I come back, wake it up, and then put the next color on and continue. So it helps you maintain your natural workflow, where the machine does not become kind of an obstacle in the middle of your project. It actually stays there on standby for you and makes that easier for you. And again, that's the brilliance of the Bernina user interface. It makes it easier to keep going at your project and focus on your project. So for the basic features, again, you have the size, you have the speed up to 1,000 stitches a minute. The average embroidery speed is more like 800 stitches a minute on most machines, but up to 1,000. So it will speed up when the stitching allows it. And you have the capability of going through thick or thin material. There is a settings menu in there. As we joke here, we say you do this once in your life. You go there, you tailor the machine to your needs, to your likes, and then you forget how you did it because it does it for you after that. But you can actually adjust the thickness of the project that you're doing. So if you're embroidering on a terry towel with a topper, like a water-soluble topper stabilizer on the top of the towel, you will need to allow the foot to hop higher to make sure that a towel can move freely underneath. There's a setting in there to do this. In this class of machine, that is considered fancy. That's considered high-end feature. It's sophisticated. So there's a lot of features in there. There's even a tension control inside. You can adjust your tension as you want on the machine, but you can actually, if you're going to use a super heavy thread, heavier than usual, you can actually create an offset and tell the machine compensate for this thread if need be. So typically we don't need this, but for special applications, it is in there. You can even slow down the maximum speed of the machine. Let's say you're teaching a child to embroider, and you don't want the machine even at full slider, full speed control. You don't want it to race. You want it to stay slow because you don't want things to run out of hand. You can actually do that. Do we use that a lot? No. But if you're teaching somebody, it's actually a good feature to have. So there's a whole bunch of features in there that you can control. You can control the thread cutter. There are applications where we call it in embroidery continuous bobbin thread. You don't cut at all because you will cut the upper thread manually when you're done. But for like cross stitch benefits from a continuous bobbin thread because crosses have very little stitching to hold itself down. It's very very simple thread crisscrossing, and if you lose your tie-in stitches, it will basically come unraveled. I did the 4 million stitch quilt was done with cross stitch all over. It's 5 feet by 7 feet, so I've done a bit of cross stitch, right? And with cross stitch, you benefit from turning off the cutter, letting your bobbin thread run continuous. That way, all your threads, when you start and end, are anchored much more effectively because there aren't all these cuts. And that has nothing to do with the machine, regardless of brand or price you paid for the machine. It has to do with cross stitch, for that matter, and how it behaves once it's stitched out, and especially if it's going to be washable. So there's a little tip for things like cross stitch or very delicate embroidery. If you use a matching bobbin thread to your fabric, you can actually let the bobbin thread run under and not cut it. That way it will be more stable embroidery after it's stitched out. So that is for these. Now, I said these machines will do pretty much all the key stuff. But before we go there, let me mention something that's very important. There's information built into the machine here. Let me actually look at my screen so I give you the right info. There is a tutorial here on the screen. That's basically a redux of the owner's manual. There's even animations, how to wind the bobbin, how to put it in, how to thread the machine. If you forgot a little something on how to handle the machine, it's built into the machine itself with the tutorial. So that's actually a very good feature. Then this machine comes also with it will come with a quick reference card, and a quick reference card will be it's very pictorial. So if you can read the image, you will know exactly it's color coded. Manipulations are in one color. What you have, the steps you have to do, like put the hoop down, that's in red arrows. So it's all very visual, and there's a bit of wording in there, but it's very visual. So it works very well. If you go through this card, you pretty much know everything you need to know about this machine.
And Sylvain, if I can interrupt for a second too, what's really unique with Pins and Needles and Sew It Online is that whenever you purchase a machine with us, it comes with free classes too. So this will come with embroidery usage classes. If you're local, you can come right into the store and take those usage classes. If not, we have Sew It Online, which has, welcome introductory embroidery and advanced embroidery as well. So you'll get both of that with a purchase of this. Now, I also have Gail is asking, is this the only model of embroidery machine that Bernina has?
Okay. Now, this is a Burnett. Just to reiterate, Burnett is the junior brand of Bernina. It's a value brand. The machines are more affordable price points. They may not have like jumbo bobbins and some of the key Bernina features, but they in this case, it has the Bernina know-how in a value hardware platform. So the Burnett line has two embroidery capable machines, the B70 Deco, embroidery only. This machine will not sew. There's a straight stitch plate. There's not even markings on the plate. There's just a hole. But it can use the Bernina cutwork tool, and the machine can use cutwork designs. So that's cool. There's the Burnett 79, the one model up from this, that is a combination sewing and embroidery machine. So that one offers both sides. You can remove the module, put the extension table, and actually use it as a sewing machine. And it's a pretty advanced sewing machine. It has the same embroidery features as this. And I haven't mentioned yet, but there's over 200 designs built in. And there are 9 alphabets, including let's say your Roman alphabets in vertical and horizontal. But it also has Hebrew, it has Cyrillic, and it has Arabic, so that you can venture into more languages if that's part of your family background. For instance, I use French letters for when I do stuff for my family, so I appreciate having those on board. So that's the Bernina embroidery machines. Bernina has a whole series of embroidery machines in the 5, 7, and 8 series. There's basically there's about 2 or 3 per series. So Bernina has basically close to 10 embroidery capable machines. There are, in Bernina's case, they are either embroidery only, the 500 and 700, or they're combo machines, sewing and embroidery. So those are all separate. The price points will be different, being that they're Berninas. They come with more features. The hardware, they're heavier. They're built to a higher grade. They are Berninas, but that's for a whole different price point if you want a whole different step. And the challenge for Bernina was, how do you create something that's between those high Bernina price points, and you get every penny's worth when you buy a Bernina? Trust me. My first Bernina was in 1993, before I worked for Bernina, and I fell in love right then and there and never fell out of love with it. And then how do you go from this to what would be, at the big box stores would be the cheap value machines, the bottom price machines. And that's never, in my book, that is never a good bet, because it will fall short in 2 ways. One, the quality may not be there. You get what you pay for. That's pretty linear in the whole industry. And also, you get no instruction when you buy from a big box store. That's why you want to buy from a place like Pins and Needles, because you'll get your classes, not only how to use a machine, because I know my philosophy is I want you to be able to use everything you paid for, every single penny's worth, but not just that. You will learn about embroidery and stabilizers and why these scissors work better than those, so that when you tackle a project, an embroidery project, you will basically get good results. That's the ultimate goal. So how do you go from high end, like the Bentley if you want, and then the low end? Well, there is a middle ground, and this is your middle ground. But not only that, in that middle slice, this has the features, especially for the price, that are at top of the class. So
I wanted to mention 2 things, circle back to 2 things. One, someone is asking, Shirley is asking, would this embroider on leather? And I know you talked a little bit about the different fabrics. So
with the right needle, type and size, yes. Usually I don't use a leather needle because it cuts. And if you do like even a triple stitch, a leather needle may cut the embroidery thread because it's cutting. And when it goes back in the same hole, it will encounter the previous stitches worth of thread, right? So usually I will embroider with a top stitch needle. Leather is clingy. So first thing, always polyester thread only on leather, because cotton thread will degrade with the tannins in the leather, and your embroidery would fall apart after a few months probably. So polyester thread only. And then I would use even for the bobbin, you could use the same, let's say, isocord thread in the bobbin using the needle. And then you may have to play with tension a little bit, because leather is clingy against the needle. But the top stitch needle has a stronger shank, good and very sharp point. So very good to go through leather rather. And it has a deep groove on the front, so that the thread is sheltered from that clingy leather. The rest is testing, and make sure you pick a design that is suitable for leather. You don't do satin stitch on leather. It will cut the leather. Leather is not a fiber that moves around and comes back. Leather is amorphous, and when you cut through it, you have cut it. So that if you do a satin stitch on leather, chances are it will rip open there. So there are embroidery designs that are suitable for leather, and you can do an online search on what that means, because there's a lot of options available. But basically straight stitches, triple stitch, and I would slow down the speed, which here is just slide down the speed control, and to get a slower speed on the machine, and then you should get good results. Yeah. So that's for leather. Did you have a second question, Stacy?
I just kind of wanted to remind everyone too, we do have all of these demo models in store, so you can stop in and use them to see, what is good for you. Now, when it comes to just embroidery only, I have people who just are amazed by, why you would want an embroidery only. So what is your opinion as to why you'd want an embroidery only and not a sewing and embroidery machine?
Yeah. Well, chances are 90+% of the time, if you're looking at at getting an embroidery machine, you already sew, right? You already have a sewing machine. So it really becomes, the question is, do I want to upgrade my current sewing machine and add embroidery? Then you can buy a combo, right? That would be the B79. But if you like your embroidery machine, your sewing machine, if you already like, or you bought it like 2 years ago, why would you trade that in, right? So if you want to keep your sewing machine, you can add the embroidery. And then usually in this case, the price is more affordable than a combo. That means today you spend a bit less money. You get the same embroidery, let's say, as the B79, but you get the same features in a dedicated package, which means you can have this running on your dining room table while you're sewing something. Think if you're doing a t-shirt, album quilt, and you want to sew a bunch of designs, and you're going to piece them together eventually. You can have this running the blocks, embroidering them, when basically stitch them out. While you start, you can piece them or do something else at the sewing machine. So the advantage of the dedicated machine here is that you have dedicated embroidery functions. This is pretty high-end in terms of features, and you don't tie down your sewing machine while you're embroidering. That's one of the big advantages. Because, like at home, if I'm on the 790, my Bernina, my work machine, that's loaned to me by Bernina, if I'm embroidering a design, the piecing together will take place later because the machine is busy stitching embroidery right now. So in this case, that gives you dedicated embroidery capability. Okay. So I mentioned that there was the quick reference card. When you open the box of this machine, there's a second card. It's very important. It's for free software that comes with this machine. It's called Bernina Toolbox, and it's editing software. So it comes with 2 modules. And in that second card, you want to make sure you open it to verify so you don't throw it out, because there are 2 scratch-off areas. Those are codes, basically, that will unlock the software, allow you to use it past 30 days. So the Toolbox software has 3 modules, 2 of which, the 2 big ones, are included with this machine. The editing module and the lettering module. So there are 9 alphabets built into this machine, but Toolbox throws in another 100 alphabets. And alphabets on the machine, it's cool. There's some cute, there's even a childish looking one. So if you do stuff for the kids, it's awesome. It's all the core stuff you would want is built in. But what if instead of a 5-inch touchscreen, you could type your quilt label, you could type your recipe towel. And talking of recipe towels, this is done with Toolbox. Okay, so you can type it on your computer screen. And a 24-inch computer screen is about $100 nowadays. So you can type back. It's much easier. You can do all your lines, and then when that's done, you can basically send it to your USB stick. There's a USB port here on the side rather, and you can actually stitch it out. So it makes it easier. Not only that, you have more size ranges with software. You have more styles, 100. There are fancy shapes. And sometimes it's called elastic lettering. You want to write lettering that forms a bit of a fanion? You can. You want to do arcs? You want to do badges? You want to arc your lettering above, below, and all that? You can actually do that. So with the software, it basically, your machine becomes the printer, the plotter, and you are typing like you would in an email. And then when it's all good and you see it on screen as is, you can just send it to the machine and run it out. As long as it fits into the hoop, you are good to go. And the software will represent the hoop exactly as it is on screen so that you know exactly what's going on. I love software, not just because I use it to design my quilts. It's just that what I see on my computer screen is what I'm going to get on the fabric. There's no guessing, no errors, and no wasting the towel because I saw what was going to happen before I actually pressed on the Start Stop button. So that's for lettering. It does, you can even change the texture of the lettering. Now, the editing module lets you combine designs, rotate, rescale, do a whole bunch of stuff. And, it's easy to do on a bigger screen where you can zoom in, and if you want to place things, it's just easier on a big screen. And both modules, editing lets you have another 100 free designs. In addition to the over 200 that are built into the machine, the Toolbox software has what we call a cloud service. So when you install your software, you give your email address, you select the password, you basically create a little account. That gives you your account on the cloud service. And then editing, 100 designs more, lettering, 200 more designs. So now you're going from, let's say, roughly 200 designs to 500 designs that you can use with that machine. That's a lot more. And that those 300 designs extra, you get to choose from the library that's on the cloud. Not only that, the cloud service lets you use a slightly reduced but essentials version of Toolbox on a tablet via your web browser. So whether it's Safari, Chrome, any other web browsers on your tablet, whether it's an iPad, I have an Android tablet, I can be sitting in my living room, sipping a cup of tea, and I can be shopping for the designs that I want on the cloud. And actually, you can do even some basic editing. Not only that, you wanted to bring a design and show it in class. While you worked on it at home on your Toolbox software, you can upload it to your cloud account. And now on your cloud account at the store, on your phone or on a tablet or on a store computer, you could log on to your cloud account and go to My Designs, and there is the design you worked on at home. So if you need help troubleshooting, whatever, you have this bridge between all locations in the world, and you can run the software on up to at least two. I think it's 3 computers at the same time, but at least 2. So at home, I will have my laptop on the kitchen table downstairs, and I have the main computer upstairs, so I can actually access stuff from both, regardless of where I'm working that day. So that the Toolbox software, editing and lettering, adds 300 more designs to the 200 that are built into the machine, and you get to pick those. So that's a plus. And then you can combine lettering in different shapes, different sizes. There are alphabets that are dedicated to like small, let's say quote label type lettering, and some that are for bigger stuff. And you can even change the texture of your lettering as you go along. So that's free. It's included with the machine. Make sure you don't lose that card. That's a big value. That is a value, I want to say, of about $400, $500, a good $500 or something like that, retail, that is included with the machine to extend the capabilities. So then the machine can be stitching while you're making the next. When I did this towel, you make one, you can't stop there, right? When you start with embroidery, so while this one is stitching, and this is the famous saying that tell me what you eat and I will tell you who you are. And actually in English we typically say I will tell you what you are. It's basically in French it's who you are. That's my very favorite. I love to cook, so that's my favorite saying ever. While that was stitching, I was on my computer making the next one. And this one is a house is made with walls and beams, a home is made with love and dreams, right? So again, this is where not only I'm not tying my sewing machine up, but I can be on the computer preparing one design while, whether I bought it from embroideryonline.com, whether somebody, I got it as part of a class kit, whether I downloaded it from somewhere or from the cloud service from Toolbox, I can work on one while the other one is stitching out. That's a big plus for me. So that is for Toolbox software. It adds big value to this machine that already hardware and core feature-wise is already a big value. And one thing I've not mentioned so far is, you notice how white and bright this light is over my head? I have a studio light right next to me, one of those donut lights, and it's at full brightness. It's at a soft tone. And look how bright that is. The lighting on this machine means that you see your embroidery. If you're looking for a detail to show up in the stitching, you will see it because this is super bright. The screen is also super bright, and it is dimmable. Sometimes when I work at night, if the screen is too bright, it gets to be a little fatiguing. So what I'll do is I will dim the screen so it's just the right amount of light for me, and then I can change it anytime I want. It's adjustable on the fly. So that's for the lighting on the machine. Stacy, this will be a good time to remind people of the phone number, right?
Yes, so I will drop the phone number in the comments. That's 440-243-6400. We also have a few questions if you're able to. I'm going to drop that phone number. So a lot of people are excited about the fact that this comes with software. That's a big thing. A lot of the times on embroidery machines, you have to buy the software separate. So it's pretty cool. Now, someone is asking, what is the cost for the Bernina USB? And what is the capacity?
Okay, I don't have that off the top of my head because I don't have one of those yet. There's a new stick. It's on, if you go to Bernina.com, the stick is in the accessories, or if you just search at the top for a USB stick, it will come up. There's a new style that has what we call the conventional. It's called USB-A, the chunkier port, and then the USB-C, the skinnier port at the other side, connector rather. So it's compatible with both, because I just got a new laptop last week for work, and it only has USB-C ports, so that allows me to use it. I do not have the price. I don't really work with retail prices, but that's something the store could look up, because final pricing is always prerogative of the local store.
Yep. So if you give us a call, that phone number is right up there, 440-243-6400. Now, we have a few people asking this, but Ellen was the first one. She's saying, when importing an embroidery design, can you use a USB that is formatted on a Mac versus formatted on a Windows?
Yes, provided. Well, basically what you want is it's called FAT32. In Windows, that's the default format for a stick. So your Mac can probably format the stick at FAT, F-A-T, FAT stands for File Allocation Table. It's an old DOS thing. So a FAT32 format, which is standard. What you want to avoid is specialty formats like there's one called XFAT now. If for those huge sticks that are like 512 gigabytes, or a 1 terabyte USB stick. Those are way too big anyway for embroidery. That's a waste of money, right? A 2 or 4 gigabyte stick that costs you $4 will do the job. So just verify that is a FAT32. And that brings up a good segue. Not that the question was asked, but this machine has had firmware updates since it was first launched to improve, enhance, and add capabilities. So in that case, the firmware is available for the download from myburnet.com. Again, the website is myburnet.com. And then if you go to the B70, there's a support page. Then just like on the Bernina website, you'll be able to download the firmware. And basically, you just put that on an empty stick. The machine will update its firmware, then you gain capabilities that way. Whether stitches are added, new functions, or they've refined, let's say, tension settings on a few things, whatever it is, always make sure you have the latest firmware. So yeah, you can format on the Mac, but make sure it is formatted FAT32. Did we have any more questions at this time?
Nope, it looks like that is it. So go ahead and
go to the fun part with the show and tell.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited for. So
yeah,
take on over.
I had to do a whole series of projects with Toolbox, because when Toolbox was being launched, it landed on my lap. It's one of my puppies. It's one of my pet projects. So, and when this machine came out, and then Toolbox, the 2 modules were included, then I said, wow, that's a perfect match, right? So I was lucky I got to work with both. So I showed you already, this is an old pincushion, right? That was done in the hoop. So that and there are projects like this, in the hoop that you can download from embroideryonline.com or wherever you buy your embroidery designs. There are collections for in the hoop projects. They're very popular for a reason. That seam was all done, and all the way leaving just an opening. Everything was done exactly to the metric. I could have made 20 of those for all my sewing friends and just batch them, and they all come out the same. So, and while you did one, let's say the medium hoop, and then while you're stuffing that one and stitching it out, it's stitching the next one. So in the evenings, within a week, you could make a dozen of those to give to your sewing friends. That's where having the dedicated embroidery station makes that very efficient. Then we did a project that was a project for the stores. It's actually a pet bandana. You would pass the pet collar right through here. This is the cat size. There was one that is the dog size, slightly bigger. So this was all done. You just run it, and then you put a second layer done in the hoop. There's one seam at the sewing machine on this whole thing. The little black seam here at the top to cinch it closed. That was it. There was no seams, no sewing done other than finishing this up at the end. So if you have a local shelter, and with COVID, there's been a lot of demand for the shelters for pets who are being relinquished. So that would be something you could contribute. Now, a little anecdote: when I had my cat model this, Kiki, she was not a fan. She says she didn't want to be adopted. She's already adopted. So I made one for her, and it said, "Get your own human," with an arrow pointing at me, and said, "This one is taken." So and that was for the Kiki's version. This is a little project we did when we launched the Bernat, the B70 series. It's basically a little cork coin tray. We embroidered the blue fabric on the inside first, and then we just layered it and went to the sewing machine. So again, if you wanted to make a batch of these to give as presents, for instance, or just 2 or 3 for that matter, you could actually be embroidering the next piece of fabric while you're back at the sewing machine. By the time you're putting this together, it's about the time it took to sew the center, maybe even less. So you would be 1-2 doing a tandem with your machines and benefit from the efficiency of having an embroidery-only machine. Now, this is a project I did recently. I did this on a Bernina, but if you get a design like this, that's a Cork Coaster. This is 3 seams. A placement line, you put your coaster down, your cork down, and if there's embroidery to go in the middle, it goes in there. And then you put your felt underneath the hoop, under the stabilizer, and then it will finish by doing a straight stitch to nail the layers together, and then it will do the satin stitch to finish it up. And then you just cut it with the scissors. So this is all done in the hoop, in the embroidery machine. You don't even need your sewing machine. My sewing machines were not involved at all in making this. Yeah. Now, I mentioned that Toolbox comes with 2 modules. There's a 3rd module that's optional for monogramming. But to give you ideas why you may want to consider monogramming, these are little blanks, little cocktail napkins, and I just did this. I just did the monogram using monogramming built into. You could buy monograms, embroidery collections from embroideryonline.com, and then use those instead if you wanted to. And what I did here is I took the 4 letters that form the word Noel, and then when you lay those on the table, you can offset them. I put those with candles offset from, and I had my table centered with 4 little cocktail napkins. And then it goes neatly into, they were little tea lights actually. So it all goes into a little plastic container, like a food container, and it goes into the Christmas decorations until next year. So again, having a dedicated embroidery machine means I could just run this on the side as its own little project. I was not tying up my sewing machine. So that's the monogram module, which is optional, but you want to give it a look. Next, we have the best present when somebody is having a baby. At this point in my life, it's most likely to be grandchildren. This is a baby blanket. And what I do is I buy a yard of flannel, a baby flannel. When my son was little, it was bunnies playing soccer. And then when the kid's grown and you don't need the baby blanket anymore, we cut them into rags. Flannel makes great rags. So we had bunny rags for well over a decade in the house. But this is lettering and a design that I got from the cloud service. Those 300 free designs? That was one. And with the editing module, I was able to duplicate, mirror image, line up my elephants. And I was able to just add the lettering for the child and the date of birth. So the reason I don't buy my baby blankets usually is that they're too small. A baby has to be basically the size of a preemie to fit, and the feet not sticking out. So I buy a yard, and then I finish the edges either at the sewing machine or with my overlocker. And everybody's come back saying that was the best thing because it was big enough. It plays along. As a child starts growing, you can still use it. So you can personalize it like this and put it part of the little baby's trousseau if you want when they're born. Next, beach towel. So it could be done with the monogram module, the optional monogram module, or if you use a letter of your style, you can actually put that there. In the case like this, there's a lot of the pre-designed monograms that exist on the market that you can purchase and download. Then you have a complete choice of style. That's another option. I use that option a lot. But this is done with a heavy cutaway stabilizer with a topping stabilizer. Like it looks like saran wrap, but it's actually water soluble. In this case, I use Aquasolve. So heavy cutaway, terry towel, and then a topper on top, no issues whatsoever. And then when you're done, you just trim the stabilizer at the bottom with your duckbill scissors, and you have a nice monogram beach towel that is ready for use. Next, something for the house. I don't put flowers on my clothes. I don't do what I would call single point embroidery. I like to tile things, and I like to I'll do 1,000,000 stitches. I don't call it a project based on my quilts, right? So this is a tablecloth. This is a design taken from the cloud service, from the designs that are available, the 300 you can choose from. Well, actually, no, there's 300 out of something like 800, almost 1,000 designs now. So this is a little design. It's one little block. So not the two, but only one. And what I did is in Toolbox, the editing module, right? When you buy the module, when you have the two modules activated, they're together in the software. You don't need to open different programs. It's all together, and it's color coded. Everything editing is blue. Everything lettering is yellow. So when you see a yellow tool, that will be for lettering, and a blue tool will be for editing. So I just took my little block, two of them, and I made them match. And I made them match until they touched. So that way they're basically, there's no gap. And then in the large hoop here, let me get my hoop. In my large hoop here, I can fit 3 pairs easily. So you can go around your tablecloth. All you have to do is make the typical stuff for tablecloth. You measure how much your 3 pairs are going to be, how long is your tablecloth, divide, and then mark. You basically mark where you're going to hoop each one and just run them out. So in no time at all, that's a quick little 3-color design. It goes really, really fast. So that's for tiling and using the editing software. You could do this at the machine. It's just you're working on a space this big, right? You cannot have a 27-inch monitor like what I have at home on a machine, not yet. So that or this with a mouse and a drag and drop, I love the software for that. And it so happens to be that it's included. I did not have to pay extra for it. I can just take advantage of it. So that's for the tablecloth. Then one of my favorite ideas for a housewarming gift is either a kitchen towel. I have one that I planned for friends. They don't know it yet, but they bought a house recently. So it's a Julia Child saying, she said, people who like to eat are worth having as friends. And we share in common a love of cooking and a love of food. So for them, it would be very topical. So here, let me show you. This is a series of placemats that I did with Toolbox, and these fit in the large hoop. So this is home where the hearth is. This is using designs that are available from the cloud library. So this is 2 little birds and a branch that I put together, and I just parked the little birds on the branch. It's just on the bottom of a placemat. Those are called cheaters. I did not make the placemats. I bought them. And then this I did with the optional monogram module. So that is just a little monogram. That monogram takes about 15 seconds to put together, and it will take maybe 5 minutes, 8 minutes to stitch out. So you can actually, and the beauty of software, whether it's lettering on you're doing names for like baby blankets or whatever, once the design is opened in the software, you can select the name, the word, whatever it is, and retype it. It's automatically redone for you, and then you can send it to the machine. This Toolbox is a nice big sewing machine icon or embroidery machine icon. When you click on that, it wants to go to the USB stick. It'll go and put it right on there. So if you're doing badges and stuff like that, you could quickly change the name, send it over, save it. Every time you retype a name, you just save it. So that would take, at the machine, you would have to delete the name. Machines cannot edit existing lettering. They render it, and then it's just embroidery at that point. All machines do this. So with the software, you have the typewriter built in. So take advantage of that. And that is with the lettering module and the monogram, the optional monogram module. This is one of the birds with a branch that I just put together. So this, in no time at all in the software, you could create a variety of these. They could be monogram if you have the optional module, or just if it's children, you could put their name on it. So it's their placemat. With the software, it's a piece of cake, super fast, and then the machine will run it out. And again, you did not tie up your sewing machine while you're doing this. You could be working on something else while this stitches. That's a big, big plus for me. So I think, well, let me show you the pillow one more time. So the pillow here was 2 hoopings on the large hoop. And let me put it this way. So yeah, my tree's upside down, right side up. So this again was super easy. You just rehoop, and remember with the clamp on the hoop that I mentioned at the beginning. When I rehoop, all I had to do, because this is pretty thin material, it's basic cotton, I just had to release it, then move over, and then when I reclamped, that screw was already tightened to the right tension, the right pressure for that sandwich of materials, the stabilizer and the cotton I was using. So I did not have to fiddle with that screw every time. It saved me work along the way. So to recap, this machine has, not only it's dedicated for embroidery, which is great, it has top level features, and it very competitive hoop sizes, and all the Bernina user interface know-how, if you want, the ergonomics, automatic recognition of the hoop. The machine, the machine lowers the presser foot for you automatically when you start. It will cut the thread between colors if you want. You can turn that off, but it does it automatically for you. All the little things it will do for you so that you keep your eyes and your focus on the process. Those little distractions sometimes is what lead to a mistake. But because it's all taken care of for you, then you focus on your embroidery, you can be more productive and just keep going. So that as I said at the beginning, I'm a Bernina snob. I work with top line Berninas all week long, but I fell in love with these machines. I was mightily impressed. The value is unsurpassed because they are the top of class in their price range, and the price is super affordable, more than I ever thought possible from a Bernat even product. So it's a very good value, mixing features with the hardware. You get their sweet spot in the middle.
Perfect, Sylvain. Thank you for everything. So informative. Gets you excited about embroidery and excited about the Bernets too. So I love that the software is combined. That's like, I think, my favorite feature about it. Now, Sharon's asking, does the machine trim jump stitches?
Oh, yes. Yes, it does. Embroidery can be digitized in 2 ways. With what we call the end of object, which means that that's recognized as a jump, or not. Some, let's say, embroidery has been saved as and converted 2 times, sometimes loses that information. But if the embroidery is properly digitized, the machine will cut between objects and between colors. It will even optionally stop. When you start, it will do 5, 6, 7 stitches and stop there to verify if there's a thread tail that you could trim it. You can turn those off selectively if you want. So you have control over that, but by default, the machine will do it for you.
Perfect. Now, Shirley is asking, what about maintenance?
Oh, maintenance, very easy. The hook is a drop-in bobbin, so you don't need to oil the hook. You want to clean it once in a while, so there's a procedure in there in the book that will show you how to take the plate off, basically, the screwdrivers included, and then clean with a brush. You can take the bobbin basket out and clean all of that. That's good maintenance. And then every once in a very long while, there's a drop of oil to put on the needle bar, because that's the part of the machine that moves the most. But that is like a lot of stitches in between. I've seen the message once. It's like on my Berninas, after like something like 100,000 plus stitches, it will say, have you oiled lately? I oiled more frequently than that, but that's the only maintenance you have to do. But you want all your machines, regardless if it's sewing, embroidery, or combo, once a year, you want to bring them in to the shop so that they get their TLC. And that is where your technician will notice if there's a small little something, like lint got into something, or we see mice nesting inside machines at this time of year. You wouldn't believe the stuff that happens if a machine is just left sitting in a quiet room. So your technician will take care of the small fry before it becomes big fry, okay? Just like for your car.
Okay, so Zenny, she is saying, is this machine strictly embroidery or combo? So if we could talk about that, and then also if we could just go over, for anyone who had come in a little bit late, if we can kind of talk about, the largest hoop size that you could do, because I know that's a pretty big one for this, the amount of designs, free designs that come in with this, and also just a pitch on the software one last time.
Okay. So we have, this machine is embroidery only, the B70 Deco. and it has a sister machine, the B79, that is a combo. So this is strictly embroidery, but same embroidery features as the B79. So you don't step down embroidery-wise by getting the dedicated machine. The hoops, there are 3 hoops. The small is about 2 by 3 inches, roughly, like 2 by 2 3/4. The medium, and it's in millimeters, so don't quote me on the exact number, but it's close to 5 by 7, just to give you a round number. And then the large one is 6 1/4 by 10 1/4. That one clears even my ears. So yeah, they have nice big hoop sizes, and the hoops are automatically recognized by the machine when you put them on. So you can't make a mistake there. The machine comes with a free software, 2 of the 3 modules. So it comes with 2 modules from the Bernina Toolbox software. That's editing and lettering. Editing allows you to combine, rotate, scale, mirror, do a whole bunch of stuff, combining stuff. This is basically what I used. This took about 5 minutes to put together in the software. And then by the time it was done, the machine was running it. I could focus on the next thing. So editing module, and then lettering. Lettering module is a big deal. It is 100 additional alphabets on top of the 9 that are here. And it allows you to do fancy shapes like arcs and fans, and you can do a whole bunch of different shapes. You can even do a wavy effect, which is very cool. So that's with the 100 alphabets, of which some are dedicated to small sizes and some are dedicated to larger sizes. So you get a really good selection there. And then those 2 modules let you use the cloud account if you want the free cloud service from Bernina Toolbox. There's roughly 1,000 designs up there. I don't have the actual count, but it's in the ballpark of 1,000 designs up there. These 2 modules let you acquire up to 300 of those of your choice. So 200 plus designs, like 208 in the machine, and then you get another 300 from the cloud service. So you more than double your design library right off the bat. And software allows you to type, like the recipe towels, for instance, or the kitchen towels. It lets you type this stuff right at the keyboard and line it up. It's just easier than on the 5-inch screen when you have a nice big monitor and a keyboard, right? So the software really takes your lettering applications to the next level. The machine then can focus on stitching it out. And as I mentioned before, the machine stays with you. The ergonomics are excellent. I've not been interacting with my machine for over 15 minutes. It went to echo mode just by precaution. That way, even my cat cannot run the machine. But when I reactivate it, it's where I left it. It could be 2 days later. It is exactly where I left it at the color number it was, whatever it was.
So Zenny's asking a great question. She's saying, can you do the editing on the machine, or do you have to have the computer?
Yes, very good question. You can edit on the machine. You can combine designs. You can combine designs with lettering. Yes. But again, the software will make that easier, and it will add, 100 alphabets. So you more than quintuple the alphabet choices that you have.
Perfect. So as a reminder, anyone can call the store. Our phones are always ringing. The phone number is 440-243-6400, and we can help you figure out if the B70 is great for you. If you want to step up and spend a few $100s more and get the B79, which includes the sewing and embroidery combo, both a great option. And that one comes with software, if I'm correct, right, Sylvain?
Yeah, so social.
Perfect. It comes with the software as well. So all of the embroidery machines with the Burnett's included with the software.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that is a great feature that helps them stand out as well, because not all embroidery machines come with software. You normally have to buy it separate, and it's either a few $100s or sometimes even a few $1,000s. So saves you quite a bit of money. If you wanted to finish off with anything, also as a reminder, we do have financing. We normally can always do 48 months financing if you give us a call. If you want to finish off with anything, I think you did a fantastic job. I am happy to have you here, and excited to have you back.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and happy embroidery, everyone. And if you have a machine and you have not used it that much, do yourself a favor. Take an embroidery-based or oriented project class at your local store, and it will make you use your machine, and then you'll fall in love with it because you'll see what it can do for you. That's how I fell in love with this puppy.
Perfect. And don't forget, if you purchase a class with pins and needles or sewed, or purchase a machine with pins and needles or sewed online, it includes free usage classes on how to use that machine. If you're local in Northeast Ohio, you can come into the store and take those classes. Otherwise, you can get them virtually on sewedonline.com. So that is a huge value that's added in to purchase this machine. If you want to give us a call, go ahead and give us a call at 440-243-6400. And thank you for hosting this. Well, thank you for coming. And yeah, we hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.